Okay, so thank you very much for inviting me to talk about a supervision model. And what I want to present to you today is a triple helix model, which was originally developed by my now retired supervisor and what I refer to as my TA mother, Alison Ayres. So that's speaking to Mo's earlier comment about using past wisdom from generation to generation. I've taken her original model and I rejigged it, made some key adjustments to that based on feedback that I received from supervisees, plus some of my own thinking, which is what I'm presenting to you today. So what I'm going to ask you to do is if you can grab something to write with, whether it's a pen and paper or a machine, because I'm going to ask you to write something down. And I'm going to start with a frame for this short teach, which is a Chinese proverb that I really like, which goes, tell me and I will forget, show me and I may remember, involve me and I will understand. So I'd like you to think of yourself as a supervisor. What comes to mind? I'd like you to take a few moments and note down maybe 2 or 3 words or images or sensations or memories.
You want us to tell you now, Ronan?
No, don't tell me, just write it down for yourself. Yeah. If we had the normal hour, an hour and a half that I take to teach this, then I would.
All right, thanks.
Now, I'd like you to take a moment to reflect on how might these things that you wrote down manifest in the way that you supervise. Just take a moment to reflect on that. When I think of myself as a supervisor, I use a story of teaching my children to ride a bike as a metaphor to describe my philosophy of supervision. In effect, I wanted to teach them or to get them to learn to enjoy the experience of riding whilst taking care of themselves and looking after the safety of others too. I also think of myself as a predominantly systemic practitioner. I'm really interested in the system, in the context. And I really like working with the transference and particularly with the parallel process. So why am I telling you this? So in terms of the triple helix model, I'm going to start with what I refer to as a developmental focus, as in what needs attention. So the self is about focusing on what is going on with me. Okay, so it might be that I'm beginning to practice, and so I might get really anxious about doing it right, or I might get a little bit overconfident about my capacity to practice, which we mentioned earlier. The intracyclic process can take over or can have important aspects of it discounted. And of course, that happens whether you're a beginner or a so-called expert. The client is focusing on what is going on with the person in front of me. Yeah, the process starts to become more complex. It becomes multidimensional than originally imagined. And the practitioner needs to attend to others as well as their own needs and manage these competing demands between self and other. Process is concerned with how we are relating today, okay? How we are relating together. The relationship in the room, but also the awareness of the transferential domain and the effective use of the parallel process. How is what's happening between us mirror something about what's happening out there? or back then. And lastly, all these processes take place in context. And so focusing on how these processes interpenetrate is about the development of the capacity to modify your style to work with diversity and difference, be it developmental level, maybe different disciplines, different intersectionality like culture, ethnical, neurodiversity. So these are the developmental focus areas. But, or however, these areas of focus, I think, are shaped by or framed by three components that frame the practitioner, the individual. Modality is the core theoretical and ethical orientation, including integration with any other modalities. I think the modality has a lot to do with how we see things. Skills is about the development and practice of skills such as communication, creativity, reflexivity, awareness, the capacity to analyze, to critically evaluate, to synthesize, and also creativity. And finally, I think the connecting thread that the entire model pivots around is identity. In effect, we are invited to think about three questions. Why am I doing this? What's my personal and professional history? And how does that relate to how I work? What is important to me? What's my philosophy of practice? And where am I going with this? What are my aspirations, my hopes, my dreams? Identity is at the heart of practice. And I think explicating that is something we do anyway as we assess practitioners. If you think about the CTA evaluation process, the TSTA, the emphasis on having an individual philosophy of practice as an underpinning common denominator of the three exams. The opening question of almost every exam, which is, tell me a little bit about yourself. I think this is in true TA spirit, which is using contemporary script theory, is narrated and fulfills the need for identity. The model offers a developmental focus as in what needs more attention instead of developmental stages, as in who is more experienced. And this is one of my main critique of developmental models, which mostly use words like novice or expert. And I think they can inadvertently support power dynamics, which can create an oppressive dynamic or competition. And I think that can get in the supervisory alliance. The model conceptualizes a bridge between two frames of supervision: operational, as in what is happening, and developmental, as in areas of potential growth. We seem to have models that are either developmental or operational, and I really wanted to find a way to bridge between the two. I invite practitioners to be involved in identifying their developmental edge by attending to the various building blocks of this model. What do you think is your area of growth? What do you think your developmental edge is? And how does that differ from what I think? I've used this model in teaching supervision as well as in practicing supervision. It's something that I have been using for quite some time now and taught. And that is really the model.